Welcome to the Overby Center for Southern Journalism and Politics. Our program today is a report from Ole Miss students who went to, of all places, Ethiopia. It was an extraordinary journey to an extraordinary land, and I think you'll agree with me that they did some extraordinary work. I'm going to turn the program over to Pat Thompson, their leader, and let Pat take it from here.
So good morning, and thank you all for coming here today. We have been talking about taking students to Ethiopia off and on for 4 or 5 years, and we finally decided that this was the year we were going to make it happen. It's very unusual for a journalism school to give undergraduate students the chance to do something like this. So I think we would all agree that we feel blessed that we're at a place that offers opportunities, these kinds of opportunities to our students and faculty. We went to Ethiopia in mid-January. Addis Ababa is 8,000 miles from Oxford. Just getting there was one of many challenges that we faced. If we were able to fly from Memphis to Addis, it would take about 17 hours. But of course, you cannot fly directly from Memphis to Addis. So we had some very interesting experiences as we connected on all of our flights. When we left Addis on the night of January 19th, we flew to Saudi Arabia. And then we had a layover and a connecting flight in Frankfurt, Germany. And then we flew to Chicago, where we had another layover and a connecting flight. So just the travel itself was pretty interesting. As for me, I have traveled pretty extensively abroad. I've been to lots of different countries. I took some students to Central America for a journalism project a few years ago. But this was my first time in Africa, not just in Ethiopia, but in Africa. And for me personally, it was a very emotional experience being an African American in Africa for the first time. It's a place that I've always wanted to go. I knew I would get there someday, but I'm really thankful for the chance to do this. We were in Ethiopia for only 8 days, and I know the students will tell you we were busy day and night. We crammed a lot into those 8 days. We were very lucky that we had these 10 outstanding students who were on the stage here who were excited about this opportunity and kind of willing to go on this adventure with us. We do not have a publication to give you, sorry, but we were in Ethiopia just 2 months ago, so we're very heavily into the production mode right now. All of these 10 students we met several times during fall semester, and then we had our trip to Ethiopia, and all of the students are meeting now in a spring semester class where they're producing their multimedia content. They're meeting with me, with Bill Rose, and with Assistant Professor Mickey Harris. But we were asked today, even though we're far from being finished with what we're producing, we were asked today to come just talk to you about our experiences, our accomplishments, what we learned, the challenges we faced, to give advice to some of you all who may want to do this kind of travel and kind of get this kind of journalism experience in the future. So we have a couple of visuals for you. One of them is a video that gives kind of an overview of our trip, and then a little bit later in the program we're going to have a photo gallery that's going to show you some of the extraordinary work that our students took. So I think Maestro Mickey Newton is in the back there, is going to show you the video, which was put together by student Lacey Russell.
The biggest Ebola outbreak ever. Were you surprised at the scale in West Africa, these numbers we're seeing?
You really rarely see the beauty of Africa.
When I stepped off the plane, I felt like it was a place where, like I almost belonged there. I felt really connected immediately.
We got off, you know, they're like, welcome home, welcome sister.
Normally people would shut you down whenever you ask questions about things, but here in Ethiopia, well, there in Ethiopia, they were always eager to let us know, the background behind something. They'd always let us know, why people do things for this reason, and they were very proud people, and I was proud for them.
So the most memorable part of the trip for me was the just outright pure generosity that the Ethiopians showed us while we were there. I've never experienced something quite like it. They just bent over backwards and did whatever they could to help us, and I'll never ever forget it.
One of the most interesting experiences was when I flew alone from Dar back to Addis Ababa and looked around and realized that I was the only Caucasian individual on the plane. Even the flight attendants and the pilots were people of color, and I've never experienced that before, ever in my life, and it was just such a huge moment of enlightenment for me of what minorities in America must go through.
But to go to a country, to get on the airplane and just to see, say, like the pamphlets for how to survive if the airplane tries to kill you. Like the people, like those models were like brown skin, and they took everywhere, like the government is all brown skin and all these things. That was just, it was really uplifting in a way, because I guess like there's always this narrative, I guess this kind of American one, that unless they're very, very, very special, black people can't do these things, but like it's just, it was just a really kind of cool thing for me to see.
What I noticed most about Ethiopians is how much faith they have and how much it's a part of their everyday life, and every decision they make, no matter how big and how small. Specifically with the Timkat celebration, they stood out in the field for hours just waiting and waiting to be sprayed with water or baptized, but you can tell that it's such a big part of their lives, and that it's really inspirational. It was really cool to capture as a journalist, and I think it's really cool to share that with whoever sees our stuff.
Music and religion kind of came together for me in a very personal way when I got to Ethiopia. In the Ethiopian Orthodox religion, there is something kind of like a saint. His name is Saint Yared. Yared is a saint because he took music and religion and brought them together. And he was able to take poetry and dance and all these different forms of art that I think are so coveted and give them a sacred outlet in a way that was so meaningful to the Ethiopian culture.
I felt like we got an experience that no one else could get when they go to Ethiopia, because we met so many natives, the people that lived there. So it wasn't like we were just going out and going around and stuff. We were actually meeting people and forming relationships.
No, I don't hear you. So we're going to start with Sierra. Sierra Manny, kind of on the end there. It was Sierra's quote that was used at the very beginning of the video, "There's God in the ground." Sierra is writing an essay for our depth report, and that's part of the beginning of her essay. So Sierra, why don't you talk a little bit about what that means?
Can you all hear me? I'll just project then. In going to Ethiopia, before we even went there, I knew that we'd be going to Lalibela. Myself and Katie and Logan all went to Lalibela, and in Lalibela actually is the name of a former king in Ethiopia. Hey. All right, awesome. King Lalibela built these amazing churches, and they're slated to be the next wonder of the world. And these churches are still in use. These churches still have nuns and monks, and for me to say that there's God in the ground in Ethiopia is because Ethiopia, and especially Lalibela, they seem like to be the only perfect places. They seem like the beginning of everything. And with Ethiopia being the beginning of civilization, the beginning of humanity in general, with Lalibela being to some people where the Garden of Eden was, it just seems like a place that's just totally touched and perfect. And so that was the impression that I got.
Lacey, why don't you talk to us about how you put together the video and what you were sort of looking for and why you did it?
All right, so yeah, I put together the video. I hope y'all enjoyed it. I really wanted to, it was kind of impossible, but I wanted to show everyone what we saw. I wanted to put you all in Ethiopia with us. So it was definitely hard to capture. Every time, I mean, I had my camera on constantly while we were in Ethiopia. I didn't want to miss a single thing. I knew I wanted to come back and make a video and try to show it to you guys. So, and everyone else who is going to see our final product. When crafting it, I wanted to begin with what you typically see on the news about Africa. It's you all know, Africa's often stereotyped as this wild place, and I wanted to counter that with the beautiful footage that we captured and all the impressions that my fellow journalists and I got from visiting Ethiopia. So that was really the goal in making the video, and I hope that came across.
Lacey, you had been to Africa before. You want to talk a little bit about?
Yeah, I had been to Nairobi, Kenya before, and so I wasn't. I'm sure other people on this panel. I was the only one who'd been to Africa before, so I kind of had that a basic understanding of what it was like. However, when I went to Kenya, it was so much more different than Ethiopia. I don't know how to explain it really. Just, it really opened up my eyes and made me see that both times I went, I was so impressed with Africa, and it's a beautiful, beautiful place. I'm kind of stammering now. But it was great both times, and you should all go if you get the chance.
Gabe, in your journal and blog, all the students were required to produce blog items every evening. And you also said it in the video, too, that there were a lot of things in Ethiopia that reminded you of Mississippi. So you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah. Specifically, in my church growing up, we start each service with a devotion. And it's like the same thing every Sunday, same sound. I still don't know what they say during half of it. And we were at the first day of Epiphany. And, you know, as we got closer to, I guess, where the priests were, they were playing these songs over the speakers, and I was like, wow, this sounds exactly like devotion when I go to, like, all the times I've been to church from, you know, birth to like 12 years old, and I actually have it, so maybe I'll be able to hear it, and I don't know if you can relate, but it was really interesting. I still haven't shown it to my great-grandmother, but I think she's going to be blown away because, you know, we're Southern Baptists, and these are Orthodox people literally on the other side of the world, but in their religious celebrations, I can't tell you if it's the same thing. I can't understand this either. But it was just fascinating to see something that, you know, reminded me of home in Africa. Oh, speaker. Gonna pick up. Can y'all hear that at all? Yeah, and these like, I mean, they're songs, they're words, but they're like these like, yeah, these chants, and that's what it sounded like. You know, every single Sunday we open up church, and I was like, wow, I can't believe I'm hearing something similar. Still don't know what it means, but yeah, that was what most closely reminded me of home when we were out there. Besides, they have true hospitality. Sometimes I think that Southern hospitality is a little bit of a myth, and you know, we are nice people here in the South, but you know, we got a true sense of what hospitality was when we went to Ethiopia. Those are the nicest people on the planet.
And Gabe, you really enjoyed the food, too.
Yes, a lot. I think Jared and I enjoyed the food the most. And it was a little weird. They don't usually use utensils. They have this, they have injera. I'm trying to think of how to describe it, like a sponge-ish. Kind of like
a pancake soaked in vinegar, pretty much.
Yeah, and it was thin like a crepe, and they use that with their right hand to pick up all the food on the plate, and that part was challenging. I really enjoyed it, it grew on me at first. I was like, wow, this is like really sour and, you know, it's weird. But, you know, by the end of the week, I found out that what you had to do is get a smaller piece of injera for the meat or whatever you're going to pick up, and it was fantastic. They have like these really earthy, spicy tones. I love spicy food. One of my best friends growing up was Nigerian, so I had experience with African food, but it was totally different. But the stews were a little the same. There were a lot of stews in their diet, and it was fantastic. I can't wait to go back.
One of the things that I didn't mention earlier, all of the students had assignments to report on that they were given before we left for Ethiopia, and they researched them. And Jared, you were focusing on music and religion for some of your projects. So why don't you talk about some of your experiences with that?
Well, anyone that knows me personally knows that I love music. That's my favorite thing in the world. And I really had been doing a lot of meditating before I left to go to Ethiopia about Western music and how Western music has borrowed some things from African music, and African music in return has sort of emulated some of the things that go on in the Western industry of music, and different things that, you know, we exchange in so many different ways. So I went to Ethiopia so excited and amped. I was going to find out about music and religion, but I was really a little bit more amped about the music part. So going over there, I kind of wanted to find out ways that Ethiopia was mirroring what was going on with American music. And what I found out when I got over there was that my approach was a little bit off. And being that I was learning about religion and music, I learned so much about how in Ethiopia those two things aren't really separate sometimes. And so my two assignments sort of blended in a way where everywhere I was going, I was learning, as you saw in the video, about, I spoke a little bit about St. Yared. When I would go some places wanting to find out about music, I'd find people who were pretty much spiritual musicians. They were religious musicians, not exactly gospel music. It's not thought of as an expression that are separate things. They are, in the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, a lot of times, songs and dance and poems, it's not, you don't separate those things. Those concepts aren't separate. And so if I ask a question about dancing, people would be like, well, I mean, weren't we moving when we were singing a bit? You know, like I didn't really, they didn't separate those concepts. So I didn't find out as much as I wanted to find out about things like jazz, and I wanted to see if there were remnants of hip hop in Ethiopia, because there was so much going on with the religious music movement and how the people just lived and breathed through that tradition.
Logan, one of the stories you're doing is about the marathon runners in Ethiopia. Many of them have won Olympic medals, and you got a chance to go to the Koje village, which is a few hours south of Addis, and got a chance to go to the place where a lot of those athletes train. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so it's basically the second day I was in Ethiopia. The first day I was there, I was able to interview a very top TV sports journalist, and so we had just our flight was delayed, so we got into Ethiopia a little later than anticipated, and so my plan was to form all my questions for the sports journalist while I was on the plane. But I knew we were going to get in there late, so I figured, hey, you know, we're probably going to have the interview the next day. No, that was completely wrong. I was eating, I guess, dinner with everybody, and then all of a sudden Miss Pat goes, hey, you're going to interview the sports journalist in like 5 minutes. And so I was like, I'm just, you know, in a foreign country, I'm jet lagged, I haven't slept but like 2 hours, and so now I have to go interview this guy. So definitely was thrown off guard there, and then I got thrown through another hoop there because everyone's getting on this bus to go to Addis Ababa University. And I'm getting ready to go on the bus because I thought, you know, that's what I'm supposed to do. But Dr. Zenaba, he was like, no, you're going to go with the journalist. So I drove with him in his car with no one else with me. So definitely got to kind of interview him in the car there. And definitely kind of, it's the same way, even though you're in a foreign country, you're still able to interview someone. You just kind of you know, take it easy, take a deep breath, and just ask the same questions you would ask someone else. You might have to, you know, change up the wording of the question to make them simpler because there is that language barrier. But that was definitely interesting. So the next day, I went to Bukoji with a journalist who was helping us, and it was me and Katie Williamson. She graduated, I guess, last year, and she came with us to help mentor us. And so it was like a 3-hour car ride, And that was interesting itself because I only know Katie, I don't know the driver, and I just met the person who's going with us. So we drive down there for 3 hours, we get to the facility, and here I'm doing video, I'm writing a story and taking photos as well, and I was supposed to capture them while they're training. But instead, we got there a little bit late due to traffic and travel and things like that, and they had just got done training. So I had to go ask the coach politely, with this language barrier, if they could please send 2 guy runners and 2 female runners to kind of redo their training. And so definitely had to kind of bring them in and have them redo their exercising, so I'm sure they were talking bad about me in Amharic. But yeah, Amharic is the language there. And so the most challenging thing here too, though, was interviewing with an interpreter. For multimedia purposes, I had my interpreter kind of answer the questions in first person, be like, my name is so-and-so. So that way you could use that to loop over the Amharic. And so definitely thinking about small things like that were important. You also had to make sure that you had trust with your interpreter that he would give you the right answers, because you got to tell him, say, or him or her, just be like, you have to tell me kind of word for word what they say, because you don't want to misconstrue anything that your source has said. So you have to build that trust. And sorry I'm talking so much, but in order to build that trust, you kind of need to learn about their culture or learn about the people you're immersing yourself with. And saying salam, which is saying hello. Jared and I it took us hours on the plane to say Happy Epiphany, which is Melkom Timkat. And then it took me 3 or 4 days to learn how to say thank you, which is like the hardest word in the language to say, which is Amaseganalo. And just saying that, especially photographing in churches where people are very unsure of what you're doing, if you just say salam and just say Amaseganalo, the smile that comes to their faces is unbelievable. So just learning 4 or 5 words can really get you far with your sources.
And Jared and Logan, they spent several hours on our flight from Washington, D.C. to Addis. You met somebody, a passenger. We were on the plane with, I think we were the only Americans on the plane. Everybody else was probably from Ethiopia going back for the holiday. And they met some people, and that's where on the plane, they learned how to speak those words. And a couple of the other students, Clancy and Maggie, we were sitting across from a couple who were traveling to Ethiopia to adopt a little boy. And that's another story we're trying to do. I mean, they made friends with them, they interviewed them on the plane, so we had quite an experience. And Gabe, you had also mentioned in terms of working with an interpreter, I remember you had some interesting experiences.
Yeah, it was difficult. I'd never done it before, and so we were going to try to put together a story about, or Lacey was going to try to do a story about coffee because that's where it originates. And we were in this, I guess, restaurant where it had like this dance, and they were making coffee too, and we just totally didn't do it right at first. The interpreter was like too close to the lady in the shot. The interpreter didn't have on the microphone. Like we had to figure it out. It was a big learning process. This trip was, and I'm glad we got to go because now we all have experience with reporting internationally, and I think that's something that's going to pay off for us down the road.
Clancy, in the video and also in some of the other things you wrote, you talked about your experience being a minority for the first time. So I'd like for you to talk about that a little bit, and then also you had some, let's just say, interesting experiences. So I'll turn it over to you.
Sure. Okay, well, I got to stay 10 days in Ethiopia because passport got lost, stolen, whatever. So I had a really interesting experience over there, but it was a lot of fun. And I just have to first say that Ethiopians are probably the kindest, most hospitable people that I've ever met in my entire life, kind of like Gabe said. And one of the ways that they're really kind to you is that they offer you coffee. That's their way of wanting to show you that they're welcoming you, that they want to be friends with you, that sort of thing. And so especially after my passport went missing, everyone wanted to offer me coffee all the time. So there was actually one time in Bahir Dar, it was the day I was going to have to travel from one city to the next on a plane.
by myself to meet up with another group because I had had to wait to get my passport, and people offered me coffee all day. And y'all, it's the strongest coffee you've ever had in your entire life. So I think the only reason I really noticed this were because my senses were so heightened. I was like shaking, but I'm sitting in the airport by myself getting ready to travel back to Addis Ababa, and I notice, I'm looking around, I'm the only Caucasian person on this flight. And I know that sounds like a weird thing to notice or to feel different about, but I mean, I realize that has never happened to me in my entire life. I cannot pinpoint one other time in my entire life when I've been the only Caucasian person in the room, in a group, or things like that. And it really gave me a perspective on how minorities must feel in America. Because, you know, we've all had those classes. I feel like growing up where there's been one African American person in the room or one Asian American person in the room, and I've never thought anything about it, but it's a really interesting experience when you look around and notice that you're the different one in that situation, and you're the one that people are looking at like, why are you here? And it really gives you a perspective on what that must feel like in America, and I have what I feel like is a new appreciation for that. And but staying over there a couple of extra days just really showed me even more how kind these people were and how willing they were to go out of their way to help you. It was an amazing experience and something that I really enjoyed being a part of.
And Sierra, you're writing a little bit about what it felt to be African American in Africa, and I know a couple of the other students may want to chime in on that too.
Well, I guess like me personally, I write all the time about blackness. I don't identify as an African American. I identify as a black person. And so identifying as black, then I identify like with the blackness of the entire like African diaspora, because that's something that we have, I guess, connected. And so like in traveling to Ethiopia, like I'm a classics student, I'm not a journalism student. And I'd always learned about Ethiopia from first like Herodotus in ancient Greek. I learned about Ethiops, which are burnt skin faces people. Like that's what that translates directly into. In classics, I guess if you know anything about like the coursework, it's ancient Greece and ancient Rome, and it's supposed to be like this like coursework of study, I guess like traditionally for I guess like the highest caliber of white person. Like you're rich, you're royalty. Here, read some Ovid, like that type of thing. And so I go here and I learn all these things where in this country that just has never been penetrated by colonialism or imperialism, has never had non-Ethiopian or non-black leadership. Ethiopia is all black everything. And so it was really strange to like go there and feel just so unencumbered, I guess, like to blend in completely. Like there's no homogenous Ethiopian experience. Everyone looks a little different, even though people, you know, are all Ethiopian. And it was crazy. It was nothing like anything I'd ever experienced. I kind of just felt like relaxed. It was like crazy to go someplace and like see like my hair care products like were like there. People like, you know, they do their makeup the same as me. The people, they understand the same like food, I guess, kind of like that we like to eat. Like everyone likes Beyonce everywhere you go. And so it was like, it was really cool, and it really just sort of flipped like this thing, like there's this juxtaposition with like everything that I know about this world that's contributed so much to the rest of the universe just in being the first like in everything. And it was intense, it was awesome, and I think and they kept saying, I think black Americans should come here. Is one thing that people kept saying, like welcome sister, welcome home. This is a place where you need to be, where we've never experienced the tradition of, I guess, slavery like you have. Come here and just see that like black excellence is normal, it's normative in Ethiopia. So.
Well, there is another aspect of that I experienced that as towards the end of our trip there, that there were uncomfortable moments for me as a black male or an African American, as the term has been said. There were people that we interacted with that were very happy to see us and were very welcoming to us, and that was across the board. But there were also people that we interacted with that weren't able to view us in the same as black brothers and sisters in the same way. There were people who, you know, wanted tips for everything that we did, or wanted to sell us merchandise everywhere we went.
We were Americans.
Because we were Americans. There was definitely a stigma of these are Americans, they have money, they are students, they are, you know, so that was uncomfortable for me just as much as I wanted to just be, hey, look, little brothers and sisters, I just want to be here and embrace your culture and do all those wonderful things. It was hard to be in that predicament where I couldn't, there was almost a sheen or there was something that was a barrier between us where we couldn't always relate to everyone that we encountered on a level face to face.
One of the reasons we decided to go to Ethiopia, in case you guys don't know much about the country, it's considered to be, I think a couple of students have alluded to it, it's the birthplace of civilization. One of the places we went to was the museum where the bones of Lucy, the human ancestor, are kept there.
Dinkanish, Miss Pat.
I'm sorry?
Dinkanish.
Dinkanish, I'm sorry, that's right. It's Dinkanish in Ethiopian language. Lucy, everybody else knows her as Lucy. And then the Sierra was mentioning Ethiopia is the only country in Africa that has never been colonized. Just the culture, the history is just so amazing there, and we wanted to be part of that unique culture. Katie, you were one of the students who got a chance to go to Lalibela and Gondar, so why don't you tell us about your visits there?
So beautiful. When you think about Africa, you think of like safaris and elephants and giraffes and all these animals, and it was not like that at all. It was a bunch of mountains and valleys and farms. And when we landed in Lalibela, we drove through this huge valley and up this mountain to this really small city that is really, really old. And there are these churches that have been carved into the ground out of stone. So the top of the church is ground level, and so you have to walk down and go into them. They're just carved really intricately, and they're so beautiful. And like Sierra said, they're slated to be the 8th wonder of the world. So they're working on that. If that just kind of shows the perspective of how awesome they are. But they have all these beautiful colors, and everyone there completely relies on them for all of their income and tourism. And when we were there, it's such a different kind of place because we drove by this jail, and our guide was like, yeah, we have this jail, but no one really ever goes there because there's no crime, because everyone's Orthodox Christian, and so they all just are super religious and incorporate that in everything they do, and so there's virtually no crime at all. I mean, we walked from this restaurant back to our hotel, and it was pitch black, and I mean, we weren't scared because it's safe. It wasn't dangerous.
So I think we are going to take a little bit of we're going to watch the photo gallery now. Some of the things that the students have been talking about, you'll see in the photographs, and I think you'll be amazed at what you're about to see. This is the Epiphany baptism that some of the students were talking about. Thousands of people are out in parks and fields.
They view this as like a cleansing ceremony, as like a baptism that we have here in America, and so everyone made sure to come every year to like cleanse them of every sin they may have committed, but they would also bring sick people, and so I saw a lot of people that were very, very ill, and just want them to be sprayed with the water just to cleanse them of their illnesses. But it was so incredible.
These are street scenes from Dar and Addis Ababa and some rural areas that we went to. You guys can chime in whenever you want.
Oh, yeah. Also, like, driving is really low key in Ethiopia. Like this is not like, like as far as like driving went, like there are times Logan and I had to, and we were on this bus together, and we were holding on to each other because like passing on the curve on the mountaintop, like no big deal, and like all our like stuff is like on the top of this van, and like I saw this dude like go around this roundabout in his wheelchair, and like there really isn't like traffic rules, and I saw like a guy on a bike like with his like goat on his back, and the goat was just like bleeding happily into the street. Like it was really cool.
We thought we were gonna die many
times.
No such thing as like street markers or anything like that. I might have gone through. Clancy and I went up to a mountain. You saw one picture and we were walking down, and those are the only times we went through street lights. So it was like Ethiopian roulette on the roads. It was unbelievable.
One of the hardest things, Katie can definitely emphasize this, is taking photos abroad. First of all, it's hard enough to do it in America because as soon as you pull out a camera, someone's going to jump away from you or hide from you. But in Ethiopia, where you can't explain what you're doing, it feels so weird when you're taking a photo. You know you're not exploiting them or exploiting the people that you're photographing, but it just felt weird to take photos without being able to explain yourself. And sometimes you would hold a camera up and someone would look away. And of course, you're supposed to wait for that perfect moment. So sometimes, the person would look away, and then they would turn their head and look back at you, and then they'd like get up and leave. And you felt rude in a way, but it's hard. It was hard as a photographer to be out there and not be able to explain the main purpose, because you were out there. We were out there for a good reason, and it was definitely hard.
And these are some of the marathon runners that we were talking about that Logan photographed. This facility. Where he went is known all over the world. There's coffee. We went to a lot of coffee ceremonies. Ethiopians spend hours and hours drinking coffee and talking in cafes and restaurants. Dancing. We haven't talked about the dancing. Anybody want to show them how they have a very
okay, yeah, like serious story time. Logan and I had to go to this bar together, and Logan was so turned up as Logan always is, and I'm just like dead. And they pulled Logan on stage, and he's like doing somersaults and like just like getting his like, neck and his shoulders. They called him a simulator. Like he came home with like a nickname. It was great.
They have a very distinctive folk dance that they taught the people on the stage here how to do that dance. Anybody want to show them?
Yeah, okay, well, first of all...
JB met his wife in Ethiopia, so I think...
It's like twerking with your shoulders. You do a lot of shoulder work.
The bankhead bounce, and it's
it is. We called it... we called it the mosquito dance. It's like getting bit by mosquitoes.
Yeah. So they when we went to restaurants, they have these places that you have dinner and the music and the dance, and they would pull all the students up on stage to dance. We had a lot of fun. What they also didn't talk about was all the singing. Anybody want to talk about the singing on the bus?
Oh. Was I the leader of that? Okay.
Yes, you were.
I guess we just sang a lot of the time to kind of like calm things down. There were a lot of intense situations where we were kind of like, does the driver know where we're going? Like, does he know that we don't want to be headed this direction? And he didn't speak English, and we were kind of just like riding along, but we were supposed to be somewhere else. So I was just like, okay, let's sing a song. And everybody was just jamming out on the bus. It was really like 90s throwback kind of thing.
Really
was. A little bit of Beyonce here and there, but
everywhere.
It was good.
Maggie, why don't you talk a little bit about you did Timkat Epiphany in Addis, so tell people a little bit about what that celebrates and kind of what that was like.
Okay, so my story was actually Timkat Epiphany. I guess it's an interchangeable word that they used over there. It's basically a 3-day celebration where they celebrate the baptism of Jesus. Basically, he moves from the River of Jordan to I can't really pronounce exactly what the place is, but what they do is on the eve of Timkat, which is called Ketura, we got to actually go there, and people basically are just all in the streets of Addis, and they have these carpets, and they're red, and they're rolled out on the streets, and people basically just sing and dance, and the arcs, which represent the Jesus, are moved from, there's about, I want to say like 12 was there like 12, somewhere around there, or 10, they would take them and they would march them to this big field. And in the field, people would just be chanting and praying and stuff, and they'd be going, ah, la, 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 la. Is that sounds about right? Yeah.
About right.
It's a little bit higher than that, but it was just really, it was really cool to see that. And also, like the following day, they had the baptism, which you saw some of the pictures. That was in Bahir Dar, but in Addis, they basically were all surrounded by like this one area that was blocked off where the arks were, and they had this one guy climb on the fence and had like a hose, and he just like sprayed everyone with it. And me and Lacey were like in the front center, and there was like guards, and they're dressed in like blue camo, and they were just like, just trying to get us not to like step over their boundary or anything. And at one point, the water like came out, and me and Lacey just almost like fell like face forward. But it was just amazing just because so many people were rushing to get baptized because it was just this holy water that was so blessed and everything. And it was also awesome because we got to go like behind the scenes. Our guide, the guy that was, our interpreter, he led us behind the scenes. So that was like really cool to see all the people, doing the procession of the Arks of the Covenant. So that was just cool. And we also got to interview some like deacons and also a teacher at a church. So it was just really, it was awesome to like see everything, especially when we got to go behind the scenes and interview so many incredible people. And it was neat because every time I interviewed someone, they would describe Epiphany as a unique celebration because it was so unique to their culture, because not that many people celebrate something like this, because I'm pretty sure half of you probably didn't know what it was until, we told you about it. So it was really cool.
Tell them about how you were interviewed by EBC.
Oh, okay. So EBC, I guess, is like their Ethiopian ABC type or BBC type thing. And I was just, interviewing this one guy, and this Ethiopian, I think it was radio guy, walks up to me and is like, excuse me, miss, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm just interviewing some people for, school. We're here from Ole Miss. We're just trying to, report on you guys' culture so we can show everyone back in America. And he was like, do you mind if I interview you? And I was like, sure, why not? And so he interviewed me and asked me, how I felt about Timkat as a whole. And it was just cool to be interviewed, because I was interviewing so many people. It was cool that he had my experience on the whole celebration itself.
And Maggie and Jared also got a chance to be, Jared does, in addition to working for the DM and Newswatch and Rebel Radio, he got a chance to be interviewed by the radio station on the campus of Addis Ababa University, too. So I want to move to Anne-Marie, who had some interesting challenges at several places in Ethiopia. So talk about that for a little bit.
So I don't know if you guys were paying attention to Logan when he was talking about, kind of the language barrier that we had. And so it was one of the times we were at this church, Jared and Maggie, they were interviewing the minister, one of the deacons of the church, actually. And so me and Katie Williamson, we were going around the church and the grounds and stuff and taking pictures and everything. And so we go in the church, and there are these women praying. And so, like, I know if I'm at church, at my home church, I'm not going to take a picture of anybody, praying or anything like that, because it might be disrespectful to them. And so it's like, you don't want to ever come off as, like, disrespectful, because, I can't communicate to them that, hey, I'm not trying, to take advantage of you. And so it was very difficult. And so then, like, one of the ministers, he actually, like, came in and he was guiding me around, like, showing me what the different, like, tapestry, meant and stuff and everything. And then I heard this singing and, like, this chanting and stuff. So I'm like, okay, what is this? Like, literally, I'm, like, transported back to home, when, like, somebody's about to get baptized. We sing Wade in the Water or something like that. And so I'm like, what is this? It reminded me of that. And so I see this, like, other guy, he's like walking into like this little house, and like the preacher is like chanting and everything. And then I look in, and like he's like basically he signals for me to take off my shoes, and there's this baby getting christened, and it was just like the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen in my life. And it really, like, a lot of the traditions that we have here in America, they're the same as there, because it literally looked like, you know, a christening that I witnessed at home. And so, you know, I wanted to be careful because this was an intimate moment for that family, not to try to take advantage of them and, you know, take the pictures of that. But at the same time, it's like, you know, you have a journalistic duty as well.
You want to tell them what you told me in the theater?
Oh, yeah. And so also I did a story on theater. So we were at the local theater. There was like this play. Just imagine you're like watching like a Tyler Perry play. Literally, like there was this romance drama going on stage, and like the crowd is laughing and everything. And I'm supposed to be getting like B-roll and filming the play. So our interpreter, he like disappears to go somewhere. And so he's not there to tell the people that I'm not trying to, you know, take advantage of anybody. And so the guy, he comes and taps me on my shoulder. He's like, "No photography." And I was like, okay. And so I'm like, So, you know, you like at the movies, you know how people bootleg movies sometimes. And so I'm like literally like this, you know.
And she comes sits next to me.
Yeah. So I figure if I sit next to my professor, I won't get in trouble, you know, because she's okay in it. So I'm like filming and stuff. And then he's like, no. And so then I get up and I change cameras. I get my DSLR and I'm like pretending to take pictures, even though I'm video, and that didn't get over well either. So that was just a no-go as well. So, you know, sometimes, you know, like I said, we had trouble, you know, when you don't always have the interpreter there with you, but you just try to get the story as good as you can, I think.
Leah, Leah and Katie were the two sophomores who were on our trip. And Leah wanted to talk a little bit about what she learned about photography. We had, along with us, we were so fortunate, we had Mark Gale, who was a photographer, a former photographer for the Washington Post, with us for the entire time that we were there teaching the students photojournalism. So Leah, talk about what you learned about photography.
Okay, well, I myself am really fascinated with photography, but I've never worked with cameras before our trip to Ethiopia extensively in that setting. So Mr. Mark Gale is a character, and I think everybody else can agree that he's a little intense, and I think that sometimes he can kind of like scare you a little bit just with a little bit of his criticism. But I'm a tough cookie, you know, I wanted to hear exactly what he had to say. So every time I took a picture, I was like, look at this, what do you think? Like, and he would give us, you know, critiques and criticism and things like that. So it really helped me to kind of like explore photography, and I found that it's one of those things where you can just kind of be creative, and you have to learn how to capture emotion and not necessarily try to get everything to look like a portrait or think about how it'll look in a magazine. You just have to kind of like be in the moment and capture exactly what's going on, because different from video, which is what I'm used to working with in broadcast, it's like people can't necessarily understand the context of what's going on, so you have to kind of like take the picture to show all of the elements that'll kind of tell the story in that one photo. So he really helped us get that across.
Katie, I know you had quite an incredible experience learning from him too.
Yeah, it was really awesome because I am a photographer, and so I wanted to learn as much as I could from him. But like she said, he was a little bit intimidating, and you know, coming from the Washington Post, that's kind of intimidating in and of itself. And so it was really great to work with him and just go over my stuff every day and work with him while I was shooting. I learned a lot of different techniques to get different shots and stuff. But you know, in the journalism world, your editors are not going to be nice to you, and so I told him, I was like, I don't want you to like go easy on me. I just want to learn as much as I can from you. And that was a really exciting part of the trip because, you know, not only were we experiencing this different culture, but I was getting to work on something that I love to do.
So I think we wanted to leave time for at least a couple of questions. And before I do that, I know that some of the students' family members are here today. So I would ask for all of you to stand up, please. We want to thank you for trusting your children and siblings with us. So all family members can stand up. So does anybody have a question? Any questions? Yes. Anybody want to take a shot at that?
Well, I hinted to it earlier. I don't know, I guess in my experience of growing up, we do have hospitality here in the South, but I think it's a little bit blown out of proportion by people who may visit us and don't live here every day. I think all of us from the South can probably attest to that, but these people have a true sense of hospitality. You know, they welcome us with open arms, even if they didn't know us, you know. I met an Ethiopian student. He's a journalism student there too, and I've been emailing him or Facebook messaging him to this day. He's extremely helpful, and he has no problem. He's a graduate student, and he has absolutely no problem helping me try to translate this language that I don't know. And it was just unbelievable to get that type of help from people who we didn't know, and especially our two main guides, Dr. Zinaba and this man named Gulalot. They were incredible people, like some of the best two men I've ever met in my life.
And I guess I would also say, just in response to that, again, Ethiopians aren't all homogenous people, and they're not just sort of, it's not like a culture where, oh, look, we're going to be happy dancing Ethiopians for these Americans who decide to visit. It's definitely just a culture of, like, what I feel is just people who, in their identity, are so, like I said, just unencumbered by what colonialism just does to communities of people of color generally. And so you can go there, and it's not a place where your Americanness matters really to anyone except that you might look different. So it's not like it's not like a place where you go and it's just like you have like a bunch of like Ethiopian like servants or like people just aiming to please you as a country in which like you go to engage, where people live their lives and they're just there, and they are totally connected with both their past and with the future. And it's a really smart, awesome, progressive country.
Any other questions? Yes, one up there. Yes, you. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you
very much.
Yeah, can I just say this too? Also, you know, that's one of the things that I think made our group so unique is that, you know, we didn't want to just go over there and get the typical story about poverty, because it's much more than that. And so we chose stories that would like shed a light on all about Ethiopia, not just certain aspects of it. And I think a lot of people, sometimes when you go, you don't broaden your horizons when you go to these countries. You only have this one mindset. And so our group, and I think that's what why they were so hospitable to us, is because they appreciated that we wanted to get to know them for themselves and not, you know, some facade character thing.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Question is, how are these students selected to go? And secondly, how was the trip financed?
We had students apply for the program. They submitted applications and they were interviewed. And then we had, they paid some expenses and we had some scholarship money. Sorry. Thanks. Any other questions?
Up there.
In the back there?
I can answer that. I think that one of the most important things I took away from the trip was that the experience of being black in Africa and being black in America are like two totally different things, because when I went to Africa, I found that African Americans do have history beyond Black History Month. It's like you don't learn about certain cultures in school, in the classroom when you're younger, but going to Africa and seeing that like there's a culture there that has existed
beyond like the 1960s and the 1800s. It's just amazing to understand that it's so much bigger than what we've learned. So I think that that's one of the most important things I took away from going to Africa, was just the fact that I can appreciate being an African American, because I know that just because I don't know all the history that came along with my culture, I know that it exists.
I just want to say something too, is definitely this trip helped me realize as a journalist, you know, the things that I need to think about, the things I can't forget, and just taking a deep breath and approaching it in a very slow manner, but an aggressive manner. There were many times I got back from interviewing someone and I forgot to ask a question, or I forgot to get this ambient, or I forgot to get this photo. And I can't go back to Ethiopia and do that. So definitely, if you see the challenges, but you have to plan it out. It really, I mean, I say this a lot, help you grow up as a reporter, but being over there was a completely different experience, and having to do all this and think about how I'm going to get from one place to the other, but also communicate with someone who doesn't speak my language and get the content that I need for the story to make it effective and tell it the way I need it to be told was very challenging. But coming back here to the United States, I can handle any story you throw at me. Anything you throw at me, I will do it, and I will do it without a problem. I'm not saying that because I'm cocky, but because of the experiences that I had in Ethiopia through international reporting has really prepared me to think how I need to be as a reporter here in America.
And I just want to say I had such an incredible experience with these students. I know all of them because all of them either work now at the Student Media Center or they have worked in the past. Some of them I have seen pretty much every day for the past couple of years. They worked really hard. We all worked really hard. We're excited about the content we're producing. I mean, you just saw a sampling of some of the amazing work that they've done. So why don't we give them some applause, and I think we're finished.